World News. As told by Grandpa, 15th August 2025. Come closer, my dear. Sit down. Today I'll tell you all about what's happening in the world. It's one of those days when history feels alive and the news market is buzzing with stories. Let's begin. Trump and Putin. Peace talks in Alaska? Well, now, the biggest headline of the day, U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin sat down for high-stakes talks in Alaska, of all places. They met at Joint Base Elmendorf-Richardson, aiming to find a way to end the war in Ukraine. Trump didn't mince his words. I'll be happy only if the war stops today. Putin, on the other hand, nodded along, but hinted that Russia isn't planning to give up the territories it's already taken. People are whispering that if these two actually strike a peace deal, it could become the biggest diplomatic surprise of the 21st century. VJ Day. 80 years since the end of World War I. Exactly 80 years ago today, Japan surrendered, ending the Second World War. To mark the occasion, Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba expressed deep remorse over the war and its consequences. Meanwhile, in London, King Charles led a grand commemorative ceremony. War veterans, old soldiers, and surviving heroes gathered to pay their respects. Grandpa thinks to himself, if only world leaders had sat down and talked earlier, back then, so many lives could have been saved. India's 79th Independence Day, colors, traditions, and honor for sanitation workers across the border, there was celebration in full swing. India marked its 79th Independence Day with pomp and pride. At Delhi's Red Fort, the national flag was hoisted, followed by a long prime ministerial speech. The special highlight this year, sanitation workers were honored as chief guests. They were invited onto the main stage, publicly recognized for their contribution to public health and cleanliness. Grandpa nods approvingly. It's good to see the unsung heroes finally being given the spotlight. South Korea. Bomb threat on Liberation Day. Heading east, South Korea celebrated its Gwangbokjeol, the day marking liberation from Japanese colonial rule. But the festivities were rattled by a bomb threat targeting the U.S. Embassy in Seoul. Fortunately, after an investigation, it turned out to be a false alarm. Still, the police and security forces spent half the day on high alert. Grandpa sighs. When threats loom over a Freedom Day, the joy feels dimmed. New Zealand. Young star shines at Darts Masters. And now some sports news. The New Zealand Darts Masters tournament kicked off, and a young rising star, Luke Littler, made a spectacular debut. All eyes are now on tomorrow's quarterfinal matches. Grandpa chuckles. Darts is such a simple yet tricky game. Just aim and hit. Life should be the same way. Washington Post's The 7 World in 7 Minutes in the U.S. The Washington Post released its daily episode of The 7, a quick 7-minute roundup of politics, weather, health, and local updates. Grandpa laughs. In my day, you had to read the entire newspaper for your news. These folks cover the whole world before you've even finished your morning tea. Grandpa's reflections. Between the headlines. Listening to today's news, my dear, one thing becomes clear. Somewhere in the world, people are fighting, somewhere they're celebrating. In some places, they're apologizing. In others, they're facing threats. But in the end, everyone wants the same thing. Peace. If the Trump-Putin meeting succeeds, 2025 could be remembered as the year of peace. Japan and the UK's ceremonies remind us that the end of war is itself a reason for celebration, even if it comes late. India honoring sanitation workers teaches us that real heroes often work in the shadows. South Korea's bomb scare warns us that freedom requires constant protection. In sports and entertainment, they add a lighthearted sprinkle of joy to life's heaviness. Grandpa's closing words. It's important to listen to the news, but don't get trapped inside it. The world keeps changing. True peace is something you have to grow within yourself.